This is Economy Watch, what you need to know about New Zealand's economic life today. Brought to you by interest.co.nz.
Kia ora, and welcome to Wednesday's Economy Watch, where we follow the economic events and trends that affect Aotearoa. I'm David Chaston, and this is the international edition from interest.co.nz, and today we lead with news. Questions remain about whether inflation's fall can be maintained. Today is another shadow day with mostly second-tier data released, but some of it is interesting all the same. First in the US, retail sales at physical stores were up 5.3% last week from the same week a year ago, a good real rise above inflation, but it was a slowing from earlier weeks and is the least rise since mid-April. But things don't seem to be expanding anymore in their factory sector. More Fed district surveys are being released, the latest one from the mid-Atlantic states, and that brought a slowing in June, largely based on retreating new order levels. However, the Chicago Fed's National Activity Index for May was less negative, turning up after two prior down months. This was on the back of an expanding production levels, and new order levels held their own. The Dallas Fed's Services PMI for June retreated again, but by far less than the sharpish May level. This is a key red state that is struggling. Nationally, a widely watched Conference Board survey of consumer sentiment dipped in June from May, but not as much as expected. The present conditions aspect remains buoyant, but it is the future expectations component that eased a bit. Separately, there was a US Treasury 2-year bond auction earlier today, and it was strongly supported, delivering a median yield of 4.66%. A month ago at the equivalent event, the median yield was 4.85%, so a 19 basis points easing since then. More than $192 billion was offered for the $71 billion available. Is inflation under control in the US? A key Fed official doesn't think so yet, and said she is prepared to vote to raise rates again if the disinflation trend doesn't continue. In Canada, they got a small surprise from their May CPI data. It rose to 2.9% from its three-year low of 2.7% in April. Analysts had expected it to retreat to 2.6%. While this move is still in the Bank of Canada's expectation range of about 3%, the halt to the disinflation trend challenged earlier bets that the central bank will continue loosening monetary policy. Bond yields fell there. In Japan, researchers have found more than 200 million tonnes of manganese nodules rich in battery materials in the Pacific Ocean and inside the country's exclusive economic zone. They say that this deposit contains 610,000 tonnes of cobalt, equivalent to 75 years of Japan's consumption, and 740,000 tonnes of nickel, equivalent to 11 years. The latest South Korean consumer sentiment survey rose in June to its highest level since March. Sentiment regarding their current living standards increased, while the future outlook improved by the same margin. Expectations for future household income also rose. And Australian consumer sentiment is mired in low territory, according to the June update from the Westpac Melbourne Institute survey. Despite the improvement, consumer sentiment remains below its March level and still firmly in deep pessimistic territory. The survey details suggest positives from fiscal support measures are being negated by increased concerns about inflation and the outlook for interest rates. In Europe, Denmark is set to become the first nation to impose climate taxes on their agricultural sector. They say they're doing it in part to encourage other countries to follow. Less than 2% of Denmark's GDP comes from their rural sector, but it delivers 22% of their exports. In the UK, the sheer size of their housing crisis has been explained in a dramatic way. Since 1977, they've fallen behind other northern EU countries in building new homes, driving a severe shortage that has sent house prices soaring and kept young Britons out of the market. A Bloomberg analysis found that the failure to keep housing production on pace has led to a massive 4.3 million missing homes, greater than the number of existing dwellings in all of London. The US Treasury 10-year yield is now at 4.23% and down 2 basis points from yesterday. And the price of gold will start today down $13 from yesterday at $2,319 an ounce. And oil prices are down 50 cents at $81 a barrel in the US, while international Brent price is down $1 to just under $84.50 a barrel. And the Kiwi dollar starts today little change from yesterday at just under 61.2 US cents. Against the Aussie was still at 92 Australian cents. Against the euro was still at 57.1 euro cents. That all means our trade-weighted index starts today little changed at 70.8. And the Bitcoin price starts today at $61,577 and bouncing back a partial 2.5% from yesterday. Volatility over the past 24 hours has been high, at just on plus or minus 3%. You can find links to the articles mentioned today in our show notes, and you can get more news affecting the economy in New Zealand from interest.co.nz. Kia ora, I'm David Chaston, and we'll do this again tomorrow.